Imagine this. You're living with someone who smiles at you every morning, kisses you goodbye, and says, "I love you." But deep down, they've already started their emotional goodbye. The scariest part? Most people don't see it coming until it's too late. Infidelity isn't a sudden explosion. It's a slow burn that starts in the mind, festers in the heart, and eventually manifests in actions. The woman who cheats doesn't wake up one morning and decide to betray her partner. Instead, she goes through a psychological process of emotional detachment that can take weeks, months, or even years to fully develop. Here's the unsettling truth. The signs are always there. The human psyche doesn't lie, and when someone is preparing to emotionally or physically step outside their relationship, they leave psychological breadcrumbs. But most partners miss these signals because they're looking for the obvious: suspicious texts, mysterious phone calls, or unexplained absences, when the real danger lies in the subtle emotional shifts that happen long before any physical betrayal occurs. The psychology of emotional disconnection. Before we dive into the specific warning signs, we need to understand what drives this behavior. According to relationship psychology, emotional withdrawal serves as a protective mechanism. When someone feels hurt, neglected, or unfulfilled in their relationship, their subconscious mind begins building walls to shield them from further emotional pain. Think about it this way. Have you ever been in a conversation where you realized the other person had mentally checked out? That's exactly what happens in relationships heading toward infidelity, except it's not just one conversation, it's your entire relationship. Dr. John Gottman's research reveals that emotional withdrawal is one of the strongest predictors of relationship failure. When women begin this psychological detachment, they're essentially rehearsing their exit, both emotionally and practically. The mind starts categorizing the partner as temporary rather than permanent, which fundamentally changes how they interact, communicate, and invest in the relationship. Warning sign. 1. The attention shift. When interest becomes performance, picture this scenario. Yesterday she laughed at your stories, remembered the little details you shared, and asked about your day with genuine curiosity. Today she's physically present but emotionally absent, going through the motions of interest like an actress playing a role. The first and most telling sign of emotional detachment is when her attention shifts away from you, yet she tries to mask it. This isn't about being busy or stressed. This is about a fundamental change in emotional investment. In healthy relationships, partners naturally tune into each other's emotional frequencies. They remember conversations, ask follow-up questions, and show genuine interest in their partner's experiences. But when emotional withdrawal begins, this authentic engagement transforms into performance. She might still ask, "How was your work?" But you'll notice her responses become generic and surface level. She doesn't remember details from previous conversations. Her body language suggests distraction during your interactions. Questions feel obligatory rather than curious. She seems to be looking through you rather than at you. The psychology behind this. When someone begins emotionally investing elsewhere, whether in another person, a fantasy, or simply the idea of leaving, their cognitive resources become divided. The brain can only deeply focus on so much, and when emotional energy shifts, authentic interest becomes the first casualty. Warning sign 2. The secrecy evolution. From transparency to concealment. Remember when you used to share everything? When her phone was as accessible to you as your own, when she'd tell you about her coworker's drama, and when her social media felt like a shared space. Now imagine all of that slowly, quietly disappearing. The transition from openness to secrecy doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual evolution that starts with small concealments and grows into systematic deception. This psychological shift represents one of the most significant changes in the relationship dynamic. Initially, the secrets seem innocent, becoming vague about daily activities, giving shorter answers about work or social interactions, keeping her phone face down or taking it with her everywhere, changing passwords on devices previously shared openly, becoming defensive when asked simple questions about her whereabouts. The deeper psychology. Secrecy serves multiple psychological functions for someone preparing to cheat. First, It creates psychological space between partners, making emotional detachment easier. Second, it allows the person to maintain two separate worlds, the relationship world and the other world. Third, it provides a sense of control and autonomy that may have felt lacking in the primary relationship. When you confront these changes, pay attention to her responses. Does she minimize your concerns with phrases like, "You're being paranoid," or "I deserve privacy"? These deflections often mask the deeper truth. She's already living a double life in her mind, even if physical infidelity hasn't occurred yet. Warning sign 3. Intimate connection changes. The physical manifestation of emotional distance. Physical intimacy is like a barometer for emotional health in relationships. When the emotional weather changes, the physical climate shifts too, sometimes becoming a frozen wasteland, other times turning into an artificial heat wave that feels more like performance than passion. Changes in physical intimacy often mirror the emotional disconnection happening beneath the surface. However, these changes don't always manifest in the obvious way. Research shows that women preparing to emotionally or physically cheat exhibit one of two distinct patterns. Pattern 1. Complete physical withdrawal. Avoiding physical touch, even casual contact, making excuses to avoid intimacy, creating physical distance during conversations, appearing uncomfortable with displays of affection, treating physical connection as a chore rather than pleasure. Pattern 2. Overcompensation. Through artificial intensity, sudden increase in sexual interest that feels performative, introducing new behaviors or techniques that seem foreign to your relationship, demonstrating passion that feels disconnected from genuine emotion, using physical intimacy as a way to avoid emotional conversations. The psychological explanation. Both patterns serve the same function. They allow the person to manage guilt while maintaining emotional distance. Complete withdrawal protects them from feeling emotionally vulnerable with someone they're preparing to leave. Overcompensation, on the other hand, serves as a psychological balancing act. If I'm physically present, maybe I can justify my emotional absence. Warning sign. 4. Manufactured conflict. Creating justification. Through blame, have you noticed that suddenly everything you do seems to irritate her? That simple requests become arguments, and minor issues explode into major conflicts. You're not losing your mind. You're witnessing the psychological preparation for. One of the most psychologically revealing signs of someone preparing to cheat is the creation of artificial conflicts and the amplification of minor issues into relationship-ending problems. This behavior serves a specific psychological purpose. It allows the person to build a mental case for why their potential betrayal is justified. The pattern typically includes extreme reactions to minor issues. Leaving a dish unwashed becomes evidence of disrespect. Historical revisionism, reframing past events in the most negative light possible. Moving goalposts. No matter what you do, it's never enough. Projecting blame for relationship problems exclusively onto you, using your defensive reactions as further evidence of incompatibility. The deeper psychology. This behavior stems from cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort of holding contradictory beliefs. She knows cheating is wrong, but she's emotionally moving toward it anyway. To resolve this internal conflict, her mind needs to rewrite the relationship narrative. If she can convince herself that you're the problem, that you're inattentive, disrespectful, or incompatible, then seeking connection elsewhere becomes not just understandable, but necessary for her happiness. Pay attention to the emotional undertone. These aren't passionate arguments born from caring deeply about the relationship. They're cold, calculated conflicts designed to create distance and justify emotional departure. Warning sign 5. Future plans become solo ventures. The subtle erasure. There's something heartbreaking about the moment you realize you're no longer part of someone's tomorrow. The conversations that once sparkled with when we and our future suddenly become filled with "I might" and "I'm thinking of." Perhaps the most telling sign of emotional detachment is when her future plans gradually stop including you. This shift represents a fundamental change in how she conceptualizes her life trajectory, moving from us thinking to me thinking. The evolution typically follows this pattern. Phase 1. Future plans become vague and non-committal. We'll see what happens. Phase 2. She starts making individual decisions about things that previously involved both of you. Phase 3. Her language shifts from we to I when discussing future possibilities. Phase 4. She begins actively planning or fantasizing about a future that doesn't include you. Listen for these linguistic shifts. I've been thinking about traveling, instead of, we should plan a trip. I might need some space to figure things out. I don't know what I want anymore. When referring to the relationship, avoiding making commitments or plans more than a few weeks in advance, the psychological significance. When someone stops including their partner in future planning, they've already made an unconscious decision about the relationship's trajectory. The mind naturally plans around people and things we consider permanent fixtures in our lives. The underlying psychology. Why this happens. Here's what most people don't understand about infidelity. It's rarely about the other person. It's about the story someone tells themselves about their own life, their worth, and what they deserve. Understanding why these patterns emerge requires looking at the psychological drivers behind emotional withdrawal and infidelity. Research in relationship psychology identifies several key factors. Emotional needs and fulfillment. When core emotional needs, feeling valued, understood, desired, or appreciated, go unmet in the primary relationship, the mind begins scanning for alternative sources. This isn't necessarily a conscious process. It's more like psychological hunger that seeks satisfaction. Identity and self-worth. Sometimes emotional withdrawal represents a person's attempt to reclaim autonomy or rediscover parts of themselves they feel have been lost in the relationship. The secrecy and emotional separation can provide a sense of individual identity that feels empowering. Attachment patterns. People with certain attachment styles are more prone to emotional withdrawal when they feel threatened, overwhelmed, or suffocated in relationships. This withdrawal can be a protective mechanism learned in childhood that activates during relationship stress. Rationalization and self-justification. The human mind is remarkably skilled at justifying behaviors that contradict our stated values. The manufactured conflicts and blame-shifting serve to construct a narrative where betrayal becomes not just acceptable, but necessary. The critical truth about recognition and response. The most dangerous trap you can fall into is thinking that recognizing these signs means you can fix them. Sometimes, by the time these patterns are clearly visible, the emotional departure has already happened. If you're recognizing multiple signs from this list in your relationship, you're facing a critical decision point. The research is clear. By the time these patterns are fully established, the person has often already made their psychological exit from the relationship. However, this doesn't mean all hope is lost. Early intervention, honest communication, professional counseling, and genuine efforts to address underlying relationship issues can sometimes redirect this trajectory. But it requires two people willing to do the work, not just one person trying to save the relationship alone. The key warning signs of point of no return. Multiple patterns are present simultaneously. She becomes defensive or angry when you try to address your concerns. She refuses to acknowledge that changes have occurred. She shows no interest in working on relationship issues. She seems relieved when you bring up the possibility of separation, protecting your own well-being. The most important person in this equation isn't her, it's you. Your mental health, your self-respect, and your future happiness matter more than trying to force someone to stay who has already emotionally left. Recognition of these patterns should trigger self-protective behaviors, not increased efforts to win back someone who has psychologically withdrawn. Consider these essential steps. Trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your subconscious often picks up on changes before your conscious mind can articulate them. Maintain your standards. Don't lower your expectations or accept poor treatment just to avoid conflict or keep someone in the relationship. Seek support. Professional counseling, trusted friends, or support groups can provide perspective and emotional support during this difficult time. Prepare for reality. While you hope for the best, prepare mentally and practically for the possibility that the relationship may not be salvageable. The final psychological truth. Here's the hardest truth about relationships and infidelity: you cannot love someone back to you. You cannot care enough, try enough, or change enough to make someone choose you if they've already decided to leave. And attempting to do so only diminishes your own worth and delays your own healing. The patterns we've discussed aren't just warning signs. They're insights into human psychology and the complex ways our minds protect us from hurt, while sometimes causing even greater pain. Understanding these patterns can help you navigate not just this relationship, but all future relationships with greater awareness and self